So now that we have the sauce pretty much simmering for this 45 minutes, we're going to get started on our frog legs. So for this stew, in each one of these little bins that I showed you before, I had about 10 to 15 frog legs, and I have 4 of those. So anywhere between, 40 and 60 that I'm putting in this stew. It's probably a little bit too much, but I've had them in my freezer for a while, so I'm just going to throw them in and cook them. So that's another thing. It kind of depends on how much you want to put in. With this amount of stew, I wouldn't put any less than 30 frog legs. But I mean, you can pack them in there because the more meat, the better, right? So we are going to kind of dust them first right now. Then we're going to put some flour. And then, actually, we're going to do a lot more. Alright, so we're going to also put some salt, some cayenne pepper, and Tony's. If you don't have Tony's, like I said, you should get some, but you don't have to use it. Gotta love Tony's. Alright. So, I'm going to take your frog legs, kind of mix this around, seasoning. Ooh, that's pepper. Alright, I'm just going to throw them in here, get them dusted. But before my hands get too gross, I'm going to go ahead and start the pan. So we're going to go back this way, get a nice saucepan. This is for later. I'm going to get a saucepan, put some oil in it. You don't want them to burn. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put this on low right now. Things cook better when you heat up the oil at a low temperature. So we're going to take these frog legs, just kind of toss them around and get them ready. Now, some people, when they clean their frogs, they keep the backs on them, and the backs have a little bit of meat, and that's fine. You can still make the stew with the backs, but as you saw before in our frog cleaning 101, we don't save the backs because the back has so much bone and so little meat that it almost ruins the stew because the whole time you're just pulling bones out. So we find it much more enjoyable just to make frog legs with the stew, and it's really not worth saving the backs. Alright, so once we have these nice and lightly dusted, getting all this excess off, we're going to put them in the pan. Now we're going to cook these until they're lightly browned. So we're going to cook each side of the legs probably about 3 minutes each. And we have a lot to go. So I'm going to try and fit as many as I can in here. It's not imperative that they get cooked all the way through because we are going to be putting them in the stew and they'll be simmering in there for a while. So no worries about them getting cooked through. Alright, and so after these get going, then we'll be able for the next batch. But while the pan's still getting hot, so I'll go ahead and start flouring my next batch. And then we'll kind of go from there. Alright, so these have been going for about 3 minutes, and if you turn it over, you can kind of see it's got that lightly brown texture. Can you see that? Yeah? So that means we're going to go ahead and flip them over. So flip them all over. And once you get them flipped, we're going to let them go for another 3-4 minutes on the other side. Make sure that they're nice, lightly brown. If they're still kind of pinky, like see this one has a little pink on it, I might let that one go a little bit longer later. But you just want to get everything nice and brown. And then as soon as these are done, we're going to pull these off and put a new batch on. And when I pull them off, I'm just going to take them off. I'm going to put them on this plate, and they can just sit here. They can even get cold. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to pile them all up until they're all done, and then I'm going to put them all in the stew together. And don't forget, while you're doing this, you have your stew over here. So make sure that as you're keeping an eye on these frog legs, that every now and then you're kind of checking on it and making sure everything looks good over here. So it looks pretty good. I think I might turn the heat up just a little bit to get a little simmer going. And that's why you just need to check on it and make sure it's doing good. Alright, so as you can see, these look nice and browned on both sides. If I can grab it. Nice and browned. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of all of these. And a lot of the flour that you dusted them with will have coming off into the pan. So we're going to kind of wipe that out before we put our next batch, so that it doesn't kind of get clumpy and gross on the next batch. So as you can see, it's kind of a huge mess in the pan. I'm just going to grab a paper towel. Oops, hold on. Grab a paper towel. I'm just going to wipe out, whatever comes off. It's not imperative that we get it all off. I'm going to put a little more oil. Be careful because it is going to pop up. Alright, so we have our next batch dusted and ready to go, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to throw them on 3 minutes on one side, 3 minutes on the other until they're lightly browned and pull them off. Alright, so the sauce has been simmering for 45 minutes. And we have browned, we sauteed and browned our frog legs, about 3 minutes on each side. So now it's time to put the frog legs into the sauce. And just be careful when you're putting them in that you don't splash your sauce as they go in. And like I said, I'm putting probably much more than you would want to put, but I just have so many in my freezer, just trying to use them up. See what we can fit. Close call. Alright, so we're going to get them in. Give them a little stir. Now, you are going to let this simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. The best thing to do would be to just check on the legs, pull one out, peel off the skin, make sure it's completely cooked through. And the longer you let it simmer, the more tender the meat will be, so it'll just fall off the bone, which is really nice, and it makes it easier for everyone to eat. So definitely let it simmer at least a good 15 minutes. You might need it to let it go about 20. And also, while it's doing that for those 15-20 minutes, it might be a good idea to go ahead and cook your rice, because this will be served over rice.